Madalena Kojikari is a stunning 11-year-old girl living in Cornelius, North Carolina. She has long brown hair and beautifully vibrant brown eyes with an extremely sweet face. A girl that should have a bright and happy future ahead of her if her present wasn't soaked in mystery and filled with questions. Hey guys, I'm Annie Elise. This is 10 to Life. Let's get right into it.
10 to Life with Annie Elise starts right now.
11-year-old Madalena gets her looks from her mother, 35-year-old Diana Kojikari, who also has dark brown hair and shares Madalena's brown eyes. The mother and daughter duo were always close, and they were forced to rely heavily on each other in the recent years. In 2017, the two of them left all of their relatives, including Madalena's biological father, all to escape their birth country of Moldova and to begin a new life in America. Diana, who was desperately looking for a new husband, found Christopher Palmiter, an older man, clean-cut, with locks of gray hair and a matching goatee. The couple connected through an international dating website, and they were married soon after meeting in 2017. After receiving the appropriate visa and temporary citizenship awarded to the spouse of an American citizen, Diana moved herself and her daughter halfway across the world to live with a man that she had never met in person. Some seem to imply that this was a mail-order bride type situation in which Christopher promised a large sum of money and American citizenship to come to America and become his wife. Others seem to believe Diana just desperately wanted to get married, and she liked Christopher enough to marry him, so she stuck with him. She also saw in Christopher the opportunity to provide a golden future for herself and her daughter. Christopher's a creative designer for engineering firms, and he brings home a pretty decent income. Although Christopher was 60 years old to Diana's 35 years old, the 25-year age gap didn't seem to bother her when marriage would bring financial security, conditional American citizenship, and put that golden band on her finger. Also a promising future for her daughter. So initially, Diana must have been pleased by the home that Christopher had purchased for his new wife and stepdaughter on Victoria Bay Drive in Cornelius, North Carolina. The house was a 2-story brick home with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and a beautiful enclosed backyard for Madalena to play in. Worth about $500,000, the home was located in a welcoming neighborhood situated along the banks of Lake Norman. The neighborhood boasted a private pool, tennis courts, and picturesque views of the lake. For an active young girl like Madalena, who came from an impoverished area of Moldova, her new home must have felt like a dream come true. She could spend her summer swimming and eating ice cream by the pool and her autumn and spring break horseback riding along the trails that bordered the lake. Whether her life was to be the fairy tale she hoped it would be, or transform into a complete horrific nightmare, was yet to be seen. Troubles began when her mother and stepfather discovered the many differences in taste and personality between the two of them. Madalena's mother, Diana, had a very strong belief about religion and living a green life to better respect one's body and to connect with Mother Earth. Diana was a follower of a very tight-knit spiritual group. Some refer it to a cult. I'm just going to try to be honest here, guys. I'm not referring it to that. Some do call it that, so don't come for me. Don't cancel me. But it is a very tight-knit spiritual group where they practice Kundalini. Now, the term Kundalini was originally a Hindu term that refers to the divine feminine energy located at the base of the spine. This energy is believed to be the force or power of the divine feminine or Mother Earth. The yoga aspect of this form of spiritualism is focused on releasing the coiled feminine energy in the spine to achieve the ultimate form of tantric awakening. This awakening can be achieved through years and years of yoga practice. Yoga masters have spent their whole lives trying to reach this form of enlightenment. Or this great awakening can also be achieved through intense personal experiences, such as near-death experiences, childbirth, emotional trauma, or extreme mental stress. Now, for a lot of people in the West, this belief may sound strange, but in reality, many religions seem strange to outsiders. In Diana's case, it is not the belief in this practice that makes her a bit unhinged, but her deep and unwavering support of its founder, Yogi Bhajan. Yogi was a guru who took the idea of this practice and created his own religion from its concept of enlightenment. Although he promoted yoga as a way of spiritual satisfaction, he glorified the idea of intense personal experience as the purest way to achieve the Great Awakening. After his death in 2004, he was outed as a con man who swindled thousands of his followers, and in his self-styled cult, he was responsible for manipulation and abuse on many different levels. When word of his misdeeds then became public, several women came forward to detail the assault and sexual assault that they experienced at this guru's hands. Abuse and trauma he instigated to help his followers achieve so-called enlightenment from going through a drastic life experience. Since these allegations were made, very few people remained as followers of his spiritual beliefs. However, one follower who defended him whenever any opportunity arose was Madalena's mother, Diana. She regularly posted videos on her Facebook page discussing her beliefs and this yogi's spiritual mantras. Most of the videos are in Romanian, her native language. One video details her views on violence as a necessary aspect of human life, and that it's needed to achieve spiritual awakening.
Is something wrong of being violent? It is nothing wrong. It is just a crude way of conducting life. If you say violence is bad, that means you will end up rejecting a part of yourself, and you can never get rid of it, because it will not go. It will come out in so many ways. People are very peaceful on the streets, but pretty violent at home. If they are not capable of physical violence, they are verbally violent, or they are violent in their thoughts or emotions, or so many other ways. So rejecting violence, it's not going to work. Evolving violence into a more sophisticated action, it is a need. The need is not for violence, and we people must understand. The need is for the intensity of this feeling, the feeling of being intense. The need for that intensity is always that there, somewhere inside you, stays that intensity, the need of expressing yourself, that special part of you in every human being. If you do not refine that need for intensity, manifesting yourself in your special manner, and manage to experience that intensity by simply sitting in the meditativeness, by simply going into the moment of your perfect happiness. Remember the moments when you were perfectly happy in your childhood. By going into this kind of meditation, that will help you bring into the present moment, wherever you are, whatever you do, just by sitting in the meditation and bringing that peace from your childhood, and the moment when you are perfectly happy will make you change your ways, will help you calm down, will help you feel better, secure, and right where you are supposed to be. You'll find peace into your heart, into your mind, into your soul, and that will help you recreate, reorganize your life, and put that intensity that is in you into a positive manner. This is the moment of the perfect happiness. Remember that moment and always protect it. Appreciate God and tell God that you are thankful for having this possibility of being yourself.
To say the least, The video is disturbing. Diana's spiritual life and basic human principles seem to differ drastically from her husband's outlook, and this began to create a divide in this very mismatched couple. Madalena's stepfather, Christopher, had grown up in Michigan, but as he became more successful in the engineering design field, he moved south and worked for firms in Virginia and Charlotte, North Carolina, eventually settling down in Cornelius, North Carolina, when he opened his own design firm, Christopher James Studios. Christopher, unlike his wife Diana, seems to be a very conservative man who likes to post both biblical and pro-gun government propaganda all over his social media accounts. Now, for a 60-year-old man, he's in pretty good shape from working out and lifting weights frequently. But aside from his slightly intimidating build and muscles, workup and all of that, Christopher is also in possession of a pair of deep-set blue eyes that portray a very cold and unfeeling man. It's hard to get to know a person from a couple of photographs, but Christopher gives many people who see his likeness the creeps. Just like, you know, when you see a picture of somebody or you see somebody, you're like, oh, they either look dead behind the eyes, or you just kind of get the ick factor. You're like, something just doesn't seem right by them just based on appearance. Not trying to say you judge every book by its cover, but you get what I'm saying. That's how people feel when they see Christopher. Now, we do not know exactly what his relationship was like with his new immigrant wife and stepdaughter, but many claim that the two women were always quiet and withdrawn. Madalena's schoolmates stated that this young 11-year-old girl had very few friends, and with the friends she had, she remained very guarded with them. She was extremely shy and also non-confrontational. She always wore a jacket to school, even in the hot months of the school year, and she absolutely refused to remove it in front of her fellow students and teachers. This, of course, could stem from preteen self-consciousness or a way for a timid girl to feel protected from the outside world, but could it have been a way to keep what was hidden underneath, such as bruises or signs of physical altercations, hidden? The jacket alone does not signify abuse, but according to child psychologists, a child who is unnaturally withdrawn or guarded are more often than not victims of some type of abuse happening inside the household. Psychologists also state that children who suffer from such abuse will use pieces of clothing like jackets or long sleeves or pants to hide evidence of anything going on. So do we know for a fact that Madalena was abused? No, absolutely not. Could she just be shy and self-conscious of her body? Absolutely. We don't know. However, in Madalena's case, I believe these signs of possible abuse take on a different light when you take into account the events of November and December of 2022. Just before the Thanksgiving holiday, on November 21st, Madalena spent the day at school, and just before 5 p.m., she was seen getting off the school bus outside of her home on Victor Bay. The next day, on November 22nd, after Diana and Christopher got into reportedly a very loud confrontation, Madalena told her mother goodnight and went to bed around 10:30 p.m. Christopher left early the next morning to retrieve some items from his family home in Michigan. After saying goodbye to her husband and spending a long morning alone, Diana finally went in to check on her daughter, who was still in bed, at 11:30 a.m. When she entered her room, Madalena was nowhere to be found. Madalena's backpack and various clothing items were also missing from her bedroom. The next logical step for any mother would, of course, be to contact the authorities, right? But Diana didn't do this. Instead, she waited 3 days for her husband to come home to ask him if he had seen Madalena. She didn't call him to ask. She waited 3 whole days while her 11-year-old daughter was missing to ask him if he had seen her. He responded that he had not seen her and proceeded to ask Diana if she had seen her daughter, which obviously no. Then, according to police records, a very strange and suspicious conversation followed. Diana asked Christopher if he had hidden her daughter somewhere. He replied that he had not, and Christopher then proceeded to ask the same question to Diana. Had Diana hidden Madalena somewhere? She replied that she had not. Now, you would assume that now Diana would contact authorities about her daughter's disappearance. She hasn't seen her husband hasn't seen her, where is she? But she didn't. Instead, she kept all of this information to herself. Christopher claims he asked Diana to go to the police about Madalena's disappearance multiple times over the next couple of weeks. And one would think that if that was the case, he would have just gone to the police himself to report his 11-year-old stepdaughter as missing and disappeared. But he didn't either. As the days went by and no action was taken, Madalena's middle school, Bailey Middle School, finally seemed to notice her absence. The school counselor tried to contact Madalena's parents by phone, then by letter. After Madalena had missed almost 3 weeks of school, the school became increasingly more worried. On December 12, 2022, after no response from Diana or Christopher, the 6th grade school counselor, along with the school's resource officer, went to Madalena's home. After knocking and receiving no response, the 2 representatives from Bailey Middle School left a truancy packet at the door. After Diana reviewed the packet left at the door, Diana called the school to schedule a meeting with the counselor in reference to her daughter's absence. Now, Diana promised to bring her daughter with her to the truancy meeting, and this is a very important factor in this case, and you'll see why. When Diana arrived at the school for the planned meeting on December 14th, there was no Madalena in sight, and the counselor became equal parts confused and concerned. That is when Diana admitted that her daughter had been missing since November 23rd. At this point, young, sweet Madalena had been missing for 3 weeks. The Cornelius County Police were called to the school and investigators began asking questions. Although the mother and stepfather had essentially the same story, police quickly realized that some of the details kept changing. At first, Diana stated that the last time she saw her daughter had been November 22nd at 12:30 in the afternoon. Then she changed the time and date to November 23rd at 10:30 p.m. after her daughter wished her goodnight. When police asked her why she had not immediately reported her daughter as missing, she stated that she was afraid of her husband, that Christopher meant her harm. She mentioned that at some point over the 3 weeks, she called her family in Moldova to tell them that Madalena was missing, and they advised her to call the police, but she still hesitated, afraid of her husband's reaction.
He drove to his family's house in Michigan to recover some items. Diana said she noticed her daughter missing a day later on the 24th. When asked why she waited so long to report Madalena's disappearance, her mother said she worried it might start a conflict between her and Christopher, and she believed her husband put her family in danger, but she did not know what happened to Madalena, adding Madalena doesn't have a cell phone, but a backpack and some clothes were missing from her room. Neighbors nervous about the circumstances and the search.
It's very concerning.
Christopher's story also had some glaring inconsistencies. He told the police the last time he saw Madalena was November 16th, a whole week before he left for his trip to Michigan.
At that time, the resource officer contacted the husband to meet at the school and requested assistance from 2 detectives. On Thursday, December 15th, Chris Palmeter stated that on 11/23/2022, he left his residence to make a trip to Michigan to pick up items. He advised that he did not see Madalena the day he left and believed the last time he saw her was a week before his trip. According to the documents, when the husband returned from Michigan on November 26, he asked Diana if she had hidden Madalena, and Diana asked if Chris had hidden Madalena, and they both said no. Chris did not report her missing to the police at that time. The arrest sheet shows Chris talked to Diana several times about Madalena's whereabouts over the 3 weeks, and both said they didn't know. During that time, neither reported Madalena missing to police.
Each case is different from the other. They each have their own twists and turns, and that's why it's very difficult at times for law enforcement to put the pieces together.
That's 5 days before the video footage shows her getting off the school bus outside their home on Victoria Bay Drive. Now, obviously, this doesn't make much sense. How do you not see your stepdaughter for 5 days when you live in the same home? Unless Christopher is hiding information or just blatantly lying to confuse their timeline, his statements are obviously suspicious. Within the next 24 hours, the police were in their home searching the premises for clues as to Madalena's whereabouts. In the kitchen, officers noticed an area of the kitchen barricaded with plywood. Christopher told investigators that the couple was building a separate apartment in the home and that was the reason for the plywood.
Court documents also reveal while police were searching the home on Friday night, they noticed a piece of plywood blocking the kitchen. When detectives asked about it, Madalena's stepfather, Christopher Palmeter, says they were going to make a separate apartment. However, we found no active permits for the home.
Police remained suspicious of this explanation, though. So then the police went and searched the backyard, and neighbors reported investigators were digging the top soil off in large sheets from the yard. It is unknown if they were digging for something specific or just taking the soil for testing and analysis. By December 17th, both Diana and Christopher were arrested for failure to report the disappearance of a child to law enforcement. North Carolina law states that parents are required to report the disappearance of a child within 24 hours. Diana's charges also include hindering a federal investigation. Authorities have stated that Diana has purposefully given false information and only begrudgingly reported Madalena as missing when she realized that she had no other choice. Christopher's first court appearance was December 19th, where he was assigned a public defender and his bail was set at $200,000. Diana was also assigned a public defender, and her bond was placed at $250,000. And she also is required to submit to electrical monitoring if her bond is made. They're both being held at the Mecklenburg County Detention Center in North Carolina.
Everybody, is like me where we want to find her.
This morning, a community pushing for answers in the search for 11-year-old Madalena Kochikari.
I've spoken to one of the educators at her elementary school who told me that she was a quiet girl. Another one of her teachers, her teacher just last year stated, I saw on Facebook, that she was a very smart young girl. So we miss her.
Madalena's mother and stepfather were arrested on Saturday for failure to report a missing child. Police say they've given no reasons for Madalena's disappearance or any indication of where she may be. Her stepfather, Christopher Palmer, appearing in a Mecklenburg County courtroom for the first time on Monday. His bond raised to $200,000 because of the seriousness of the case.
So far, the Cornelius County Police Department, the North Carolina Bureau of Investigations, and the FBI have joined forces to investigate Madalena's disappearance. On Monday afternoon, December 19th, an extensive search was done on Lake Norman, the lake nearby Madalena's home. That evening, police also revisited her home with canine units to make sure that nothing was overlooked. One of those cars from the garage was removed and was taken for closer examination. On the evening of December 21st, neighbors reported watching as investigators retrieved several items from the home, including small paper bags, at least one box, and a very large black plastic bag.
Court documents also reveal while police were searching the home on Friday night, they noticed a piece of plywood blocking the kitchen. When detectives asked about it, Madalena's stepfather, Christopher Palmer, says they were going to make a separate apartment. However, we found no active permits for the home. We are also learning Palmer used to live in Grand Ledge, Michigan. The police chief confirming with WCNC Charlotte, FBI agents were trying to talk to Palmer's family and working with the Cornelius Police Department.
There is no comment from the police at this time regarding the most recent evidence found in the home, though. One theory presented by those following this case closely involves possible human movement, sales movement, if you know what I'm saying. According to FBI statistics, Charlotte, North Carolina is rated number 9 in cities with the highest rate of this in the United States. Cornelius, North Carolina is just 20 miles north of Charlotte. Therefore, some believe it would be relatively easy to sell a young, beautiful girl to any predator who makes money off of the lives of young innocents like Madalena. Another theory, which seems a little more obvious to some, is Christopher's deep involvement in Madalena's disappearance. Diana seemed to be pretty afraid of her husband, and psychologists have indicated that Madalena showed symptoms of somebody who experiences trauma or abuse. In Diana's mugshot, there seems to be bruising and a possible abrasion on her left temple, possibly inflicted by her husband. We don't know. Madalena was also last seen by her mother hours before her stepfather left for a long drive to Michigan. So it is very possible that Madalena was an unwilling passenger on that journey. The one thing we do know is that something bad has probably happened to this sweet, young 11-year-old girl, and many at this point are just hoping to find her alive. Now, I have my own theory, and I don't know if anybody shares it, but I'm going to share it here in a few minutes, and you can tell me what you think. So the whole community has come together to pray for young Madalena and her safe return. Thousands have showed up to a candlelight vigil held in her honor on December 20th.
Community members holding candlelight vigils, hoping for answers.
Just the outpouring of love and prayers that everybody wants to be a part of this has really touched us even more. And hopefully that'll help get the parents to open up.
The FBI, NCBI, and Cornelius County Police Department has not yet opened the search to the public yet, as they are trying to protect as many possible crime scenes that may still contain evidence. But they have asked everyone to please post her missing persons poster on every available surface seen by the public. The search is still ongoing, and updates are occurring daily. But in the meantime, please be on the lookout for 11-year-old Madalina Kojikari. She was last seen wearing jeans, pink and purple Adidas shoes, a white t-shirt, and a jacket. And they're asking that if you have any information or tips to please call the Cornelius Police Department at 704-892-7773. Now let me just talk to you about my theory here. I think there's a few different versions of what could have happened. Usually when a child goes missing, everybody jumps automatically to the child was sold. That's where everybody's mind seems to go, almost because it's the worst and the most drastic outcome one could possibly imagine. It very well might be true, especially given the statistics, and a lot of people do think it's true. But you would have to ask yourself what the motive was, because apparently there wasn't any financial trouble. Apparently Christopher made a very good living, a comfortable living. So what would the motive have been in cases where we have seen that, and cases where it is still believed that it took place and the child has still been missing for years? It's usually from an area where there's more financial ruin or poverty and things of that sort. So while I understand it's easy to quickly jump over to that theory, I'm not so sure. The other theory of Christopher taking Madalina when he went, to Michigan to pick up things from the family home could possibly be an option, could possibly have happened, especially if there was some sort of abuse happening in the home and he had to cover things up, he had to dispose of her, something happened, sure, possible. But I also think it's interesting that Diana's beliefs and her spiritual beliefs and convictions are so strong in this yogi guru guy who says you have to experience something so severe and a loss or a trauma so severe in order to achieve the enlightenment that they are all seeking. For her also to lie to the truancy officers, saying she will bring Madalina with her to the meeting, to me, shows that she was trying to cover her tracks. If she truly wasn't involved in Madalina's disappearance at all, even if she waited to report it missing and she thought she was either abducted or maybe Chris was involved, but that she had no involvement, I don't believe for a second that she would have promised Madalina would attend that meeting with her. She had to have known what had happened to Madalina or had been involved directly. Why else would you promise somebody's attendance if you truly have no idea what happened to them or where they are? So as I think through all of these situations, because there's no concrete proof of Christopher inflicting any sort of pain on Madalina or Diana, the only thing we do know is the strong spiritual beliefs and that she has been seeking enlightenment, that she still speaks so highly of this guru, a yogi guy who has been proven to be a fraud, a con man, and abused all these people and all these women. Her beliefs are strong, clearly. She's got conviction in her beliefs. And if she thinks the only way to enlightenment is to go through a severe traumatic event, is this the severe traumatic event? Not just her daughter missing, but possibly her daughter being murdered, losing her daughter suffering, her daughter being tortured, anything like that. Is that the traumatic event that she is concocting or has concocted in order to achieve this enlightenment? And I hope I'm explaining that right. I'm not super spiritual. I don't do yoga. I literally have the worst posture alive. So I can't even tell you what somebody's mind who does practice that goes to. I can't imagine it goes to something like that. But there's something that's not sitting right with me right now with that piece of it. And I think there's more involvement on the mother's side. But I want to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below. Do you think that the mother's involved, the stepfather's involved, both of them are involved? Do you think that this was a sales transaction of sorts? Who do you believe is responsible, and what do you believe happened? Clearly, it is very concerning and alarming that this young child wasn't reported missing for 3 weeks. And sorry, for me, the writing's on the wall with that. That displays a little bit of knowledge and guilt, in my opinion. I don't, if you're not reporting your kid missing for 3 weeks, and then when you ask your husband if he's seen her, and then he questions you, no, I haven't seen her. Have you seen her? Well, no, I haven't seen her. Have you seen her? Have you seen her? And you're pitting it on each other. There's something weird there. Which also makes me believe this wasn't something that they were involved in together. I don't think they were united on this, because if they were, that conversation most likely would never have taken place, because they wouldn't need to ask the other person if they were involved on it if they were involved in it together. You know what I mean? So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm going to follow this case very, very closely. As I mentioned, updates are happening every single day, literally hour by hour throughout the day sometimes. So I'm going to do my best to jump on here, give you the updates as they break. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not, so that you'll be notified of those updates. Well, turn your notification bell to on, then you'll be notified of the updates. But anyways, subscribe. Also, it's way easier, I've said this before, for me to post updates on Instagram, to just quickly do a story and let you know what's going on rather than jump over here on YouTube. So if you're not following along on Instagram yet, make sure you are. It's @_Annie Elise, and I'll be posting updates there as well. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Please say a prayer that Madalena is found safe, healthy, happy, and that all of this can, we can all get these answers soon and we can figure out what the heck is going on here. All right, thanks again, guys, and until the next one, stay safe.